Sure, let's start off by talking about the Carolina Panthers, who played the Saints this weekend. It's one of the early games, one of the first couple of games, apart from the Thursday night game and the odd Friday night game in Brazil. But we had a show from Bryce Young, and not in the way you'd like. Bryce Young had an unfortunate 13 for 30, 161, two interceptions, one touchdown on the ground. The Panthers fell apart against the Saints.
Mm.
Now, what's your opinion on it? Because from a team that was 2-15 last year, was supposed to have the first overall pick this year, but it was dealt to the Bears, which ended up being Caleb Williams. Now, a terrible start to the season, a 37-point loss, lost 47-10 against the Saints, who are a good team, not necessarily high expectations this season. So, to start a season like that must be a bit demoralizing. You have a new head coach in Dave Canales. Fans are expecting more of Bryce Young. What do you make of this first week?
It's say the least. It was a sad performance. I watched a little bit of Red Zone and realized straight off the bat that Bryce Young is just not the guy for the Carolina Panthers. First drive, first play, it's an interception. Listen, Bryce Young had ton of hype coming into the NFL. He's coming out of Alabama, the best school in college football. But it just seems like nothing is clicking. You don't know what to blame at this point. Is it the head coach? Is it Bryce Young? The defense that the Carolina Panthers have? Or the help that Bryce Young has? I mean, 13 for 30, you're throwing under 50%, which is not what you want from a starting quarterback. You can't win games when you throw under 50%. And we saw
Very hard.
it was super hard. On top of that, he's throwing two interceptions. Yes, he had one rushing touchdown, but come on, man. That is we know Bryce Young can run, but that's just not good enough. You got to throw for more touchdowns. Um, Also, you got to evade. If you can rush that much and rush for a touchdown, you shouldn't be able to take 4 sacks. Again, this could be because of the O line in Carolina. But apart from that, I mean, Bryce Young is at this point in the season. I know it's week one, but from last season and this season now, it's just not it at the moment.
An unfortunate debut, like you mentioned, the coach, Brian Callahan, or not Brian Callahan, Dave Canales stepping into his first season with Carolina. I kind of wonder if it is the coach or if it is Bryce Young in command of the offense who is struggling. Because to have a new head coach and to come out and get beaten down by 37 points isn't a good look. And I've got to blame the defense as much as I blame the offense, because to allow 47 points is not a pretty task either. 5 touchdowns given up. But Bryce Young's performance is what stood out, because he is your quarterback and you did take him first overall and you did give up so much to get him. If Caleb Williams turns out to be a star and Bryce Young turns out to be a bust, it's going to be a very, very unfortunate trade. Now, another thing that did not help was the lack of the running game. 58 total yards on the ground for the Carolina Panthers. And if you're leaning that much on Bryce Young to take over your offense to where your running game is almost if you have to rely on Bryce Young to keep your offense alive because your running game is dead, that's not going to help him. It's not going to help him get better. It might help him with some situations and some scenarios where it'll make him a better quarterback, better mentally, better player. But in his second season, where he hasn't had much experience and he's clearly not in the right system or doing the things he's supposed to be doing, this isn't good. It's not working. As you
I
mentioned, he
mean,
threw under 50%. To complete only 13 passes on 30 attempts is not pro-worthy yet, and to pick him first overall a couple of years ago, there's more hype, there's more expectation for him in the future. So it's a bit worrying for Panthers fans, especially after going 2-15 last season.
yeah, 100%. But listen, Bryce Young doesn't have the physical, like, how do you say, the physical, like, traits to be a quarterback in this league at this time in the NFL. Bryce Young is barely 5'9". Yes, he can rush, but he can't even look over his O-line. If you expect
Mm.
Bryce Young to throw 300 yards per game, it just can't work like that when he, respectively, is short, right? That's where you need to get a better running game because Bryce Young can't do it all through the air. You need a running back that is able to give you at least 70 yards to 80 yards per game. If not, your team is just going to fall down from that point. You can't put the whole blame on Bryce Young. And it's the
Mhm.
truth. You can't just put it on him immediately. The defense has a big part in it. How do you give up
Absolutely.
30? How do you give up like 47 points to a team who last year wasn't even that good and isn't the best this year? Right?
Mm.
I get that Saints defense is good against Bryce Young, but their offense shouldn't be able to score 47 points. And that's the truth. I'm sorry to the Saints fans, but since when does Derek Carr throw this good and becomes this accurate, right? I don't know, but something definitely needs to change in Carolina. The defense, I find especially, and maybe the run game. Bryce Young, we could still give him, like, some time. It is hard to step into the NFL from college to the NFL. Again, it's just a different game
Mhm.
compared to college and the NFL. But yeah, it should be interesting how the Carolina Panthers shape out their season.
Yeah, no one's arguing that it's a collaborative loss. No one's putting all the blame on Bryce Young this game. But you got to think, to take a leader role, to be the starting quarterback for the Carolina Panthers, a team who drafted you to be this franchise guy, it's got to be hard because you had so much expectation being taken first overall, and that's partially why some of the fans are disappointed with this performance, is because they expect so much of him. But like you said, the physical traits do not help him. To be 5'9" with some of the most monstrous offensive linemen and defensive players in the league at this time. You look at even one of his own guys, Ike Mekwonu, massive man, absolutely ginormous, and for him to only be 5'9", it doesn't it doesn't translate well. Once you're trying to throw, and once you're trying to make plays, make reads, if you're being interrupted by your line in front of you and being dazed by corners and linebackers, and it's really, really difficult. And people made the comparison to Drew Brees, but what Drew Brees had was pocket presence. He's really good at moving in the pocket, staying with his line, making tight window throws, and that's why Drew Brees has the second most passing yards in the NFL at not he wasn't tall. You look at someone like Tom Brady, Tom Brady's tall, Patrick Mahomes is tall. Drew Brees succeeded because of his pocket movement and because of his accuracy, and that's something Bryce Young doesn't have. Drew Brees could also control a defense. He could see the defense well, he could read it, and he could use his eyes well. Bryce Young, when I watched him play against Dennis Allen's defense, it looked like he was seeing ghosts. There wasn't the passes he was making were not educated, weren't really in timing, and they didn't look like pro level throws. The problem for Bryce Young now is because he was taken first overall, they have expectation and he kind of needs game reps. But they don't have a veteran quarterback to fall back on right now. They don't have a second option in place. So they're kind of going to have to run with Bryce Young, and he's not having success in his career so far. The lack of running game is difficult as well. Like I mentioned, if you can't totally rely on Bryce Young to take over. Miles Sanders is a big disappointment, by the way. From an excellent running back coming from Philadelphia to here, he has not been helping this offense. An unfortunate offensive performance, 47 points allowed defensively and 380 yards against the Saints. Just to make a comparison, we saw the Broncos get beaten down by the Dolphins. But there's a couple last season, but there's a difference. It was that the Dolphins had expectations, and the Broncos weren't necessarily a good team, but they didn't show up well. And it's really, really, I don't know. The thing when the Dolphins are a really excellent team and they have really high expectations playing a team like the Broncos last season, who were struggling early on, it's kind of understandable once you get if one team shows up well and one team shows up badly. But I don't think this is what this is for the Carolina Panthers this game. I
No,
think
they were playing.
that's who
They
they
were
were.
playing a mediocre team. That's exactly where What if I don't know the Carolina Panthers schedule by heart, but let's just say they play the Baltimore Ravens this year. The Baltimore Ravens, if the Carolina Panthers lose this bad to a mediocre team, imagine what it could be if the Ravens play them. They could win by hundreds. They can win by by 50. Something needs to change in Carolina, and that's the bottom line. Like you said, Miles Sanders, since he came out of Philly, just has not been the guy that we saw when he was in Philadelphia. But yeah, like you said, things need to change in Carolina, and it's different when a mediocre team absolutely squashes you that bad.
Yeah. Thankfully, there are no Ravens on their schedule, but they do play some tougher teams. They have the Cowboys, they have the Chiefs, they have the Eagles. They play the Buccaneers in their division, who have expectations. They play the Falcons in their division, who have expectations. But if you're going to go out week one and get demolished by a division rival, it isn't a good look. And you have a couple easier matchups this season. You face the Broncos, you face the Giants, you face the Commanders, you face the Cardinals. But if you're losing to the Saints that badly, I feel like you can't expect to win all those easier matchups.
Yep, 100%. And also, I'm not trying to throw any shots at the Saints, but it's at this point, it's just as how we can lay it out as well. But those some excellent points about the Carolina Panthers. Something needs to change. Bottom line.